Colorado's governor cheers Donald Trump's pick of America's most prominent anti-vaxxer for health secretary.
When we have respected leaders like our governor giving credibility to that vaccine hesitancy, it puts our communities at risk.
9 News Investigates has obtained an audio recording of the Colorado Secretary of State's office explaining why they were not going to tell county clerks that voting machine passwords had been leaked. Researchers say we need to change how we think about drought. The precipitation we get is disappearing differently in a warming world. And you can say kids should get out and move more, or you can just give out a school's worth of free skateboards and watch it happen. That's tonight on Next. President-elect Donald Trump says anti-vaccine activist Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will lead America's health agencies, a decision immediately cheered today by Colorado's Democratic Governor Jared Polis. This is quite the change in position from Polis from 3 months ago, when Polis said of RFK that he wasn't sure how bringing back polio and measles makes anyone more healthy. Kennedy has a long history of false and misleading claims about vaccines, including claims that vaccines cause autism, an assertion at odds with evidence from decades of research. Kennedy has claimed Wi-Fi causes cancer and that AIDS may not be caused by HIV. Kennedy has claimed without evidence that COVID-19 could have been an ethnically targeted bioweapon designed to infect whites and spare Jewish people. And he spread the theory that the COVID vaccine was designed to control people via microchips. Kennedy's linked chemicals in water to transgender children and linked antidepressants to school shootings, claims not supported by research. Apart from RFK Jr.'s scientific misinformation, when he was recently accused of sexual assault, he brushed off the claim, saying he's not a church boy, adding, "I am who I am." Our Marshall Zellinger looks at Governor Jared Polis's enthusiastic support of RFK Jr.'s nomination.
Make America healthy again. Using a play on words of President-elect Trump's slogan, Democratic Governor Jared Polis cheered on the selection of RFK Jr., an anti-vaxxer, as the cabinet pick to run Health and Human Services. Compare that to Polis's social media post in August about RFK Jr., where Polis said, "Not sure how bringing back measles and bringing back polio makes anyone more healthy."
When we have respected leaders like our governor giving credibility to that vaccine hesitancy, it puts our communities at risk.
Democratic State Senator Kyle Mullica is not on Polis's side on this. Part of Polis's support for RFK Jr. included this line: "He helped us defeat vaccine mandates in Colorado in 2019. Couple things about that. Legislative records show RFK Jr. was in Colorado in 2020 testifying against Mullica's vaccination bill, and that bill did not mandate vaccinations. It also passed and was signed by Polis at a time when Colorado ranked last in school-aged vaccination rates.
To have it say that we were looking at or trying to pass policy that was mandating vaccines is just inaccurate.
What the bill did was provide a new non-medical opt-out process for families that did not want children to be vaccinated, which requires watching a video like this that teaches about vaccinations before the parent can opt out.
If you looked to exempt your child from vaccines, that you had to go through a similar step as if you were going to get your child vaccinated or immunized.
That 2020 bill signed by Polis also called for transparency from school districts. This map shows district by district the vaccination rate for diseases like measles, mumps, and rubella, and polio. It also shows the exemption rate, and on another page, the non-compliance rate.
And I think that when you look at that map, Marshall, I think it's pretty clear that the work that we did not mandate vaccines.
Behind me here, from I believe it's August 2021, is a letter from the governor, Polis, to the State Board of Health, asking the State Board of Health in this bold section in the center to create a rule requiring vaccines of COVID-19 for state employees, or perhaps it's also just people who have contact in healthcare services to help the COVID-19 pandemic. This was something that the governor had the State Board of Health do, which they did. Again, this is evidence of one side of prodding people to get a vaccine, while also other directions. In all those news conferences during COVID-19, Kyle, he went out of his way to say this is not a mandate, it's a choice, but we're telling you why you should do it.
I mean, the thing that I remember from the governor's COVID press conferences was the day when he got emotional. He choked up when anti-vaxxers compared his pandemic restrictions to the Holocaust. Governor cried talking about his family who died in the Holocaust. RFK Jr., of course, has also compared pandemic restrictions to the Holocaust. He also came up, he was talking about that business about how COVID could be targeting white people and sparing Jews, that nonsense. The governor, by the way, just sent us a statement. So, Marshall, you're going to hear this for the first time here. Governor Polis has not changed his view as a whole on RFK Jr. or on the governor's previously stated concerns regarding some of RFK Jr.'s positions. That from the governor's staff just a short time ago. I think there's going to be some explaining that happens at some point.
I mean, we're already seeing calls for it from his own party saying, how can you cheer someone who is against something that we as a state were trying to better in terms of vaccination and options for vaccinations? And what is Halloween, when I was asking him about some Secretary of State stuff, where he was actually getting the COVID vaccine in front of people on camera to encourage vaccinations. We were invited. The governor's getting a vaccine. Come get footage of it. Spread the word.
Yeah, listen, we're all for people changing their minds in light of new information or a change of heart. And I think it'll be interesting to see which of those the governor came across. Marshall, thank you. Democratic Secretary of State Jenna Griswold's office was not going to tell county election clerks and the public that they had accidentally leaked voting machine passwords. 9 News Investigates has obtained an audio recording where Griswold's chief deputy tells the clerks that they were not going to be told because it would cause a media frenzy. Griswold only notified the clerks and only changed the passwords after that security breach was revealed to the media and the public. That security breach came out 5 days after Griswold's office learned about it, when the Colorado Republican Party broke the news and asked for an investigation. The passwords had been inadvertently posted on her website in the hidden tab of a spreadsheet, sitting there for months. Clerks were upset to find out about it through the news. Griswold told me that day that she hadn't decided whether the public was ever going to be told. 9 News Investigates got a hold of an audio recording of Griswold's top deputy speaking to the clerks just minutes after I talked with Griswold that day.
Josh, I appreciate that you're expressing upset. And
I'm
you're
not
traveling.
upset, Chris. I'm pissed off, and it's really hard not answering media questions the way I actually want to.
Okay, I will tell you, all I can do is be as transparent as I possibly can. We were not going to tell counties because we could not tell counties without it becoming the media storm it has become.
It's Chris.
No, it is not.
The clerk there saying it's bull is a Democratic clerk, we should mention. Election security experts say that the leaked passwords alone were not enough to compromise Colorado's voting system. Secretary of State Griswold initially brushed off the incident, said that her office would be investigating itself. The governor then called for an outside investigation. That's now happening. Griswold's office says that she regrets that the clerks found out about this from the media 5 days after she learned of the leak. But her office reiterated to us today that telling the clerks without, quote, determining the full scope of the issue and having a quote-unquote outreach strategy, that would have posed what they see as a significant risk. Colorado's second highest court is letting a former Dominion voting executive move forward with a defamation case against Rudy Giuliani for Giuliani's unproven claims that Dominion plotted to rig the 2020 election against Donald Trump.
The Coomer character, who is close to Antifa, the man is a vicious, vicious man. He wrote horrible things about the president, and he specifically says that they're going to fix this election.
Those claims made by Giuliani shortly after the 2020 election were based on a conspiracy theory that came out of Colorado. A far-right podcaster claimed that he listened in on an Antifa conference call where the Dominion exec, Eric Coomer, the guy mentioned by Giuliani, that on this call, Coomer supposedly promised to, quote, make sure that Trump would not be reelected. The podcaster has never presented evidence of his claims in the years since. Coomer is now suing Giuliani and a bunch of other Trump allies for defamation, says their public statements forced him to go into hiding. Giuliani asked the State Court of Appeals to toss the case. His attorneys said the comments are covered by litigation privilege, that Giuliani was just looking for potential witnesses. The Court of Appeals ruled against Giuliani today, said there's a reasonable likelihood a jury could find that he, quote, recklessly disregarded the truth by asserting such an explosive and improbable claim without any evidence to support it. It's unclear what exactly Eric Coomer could get out of Rudy Giuliani if he wins this defamation case, because Giuliani just got taken to the cleaners in another defamation case by some election workers in Georgia that he falsely accused of fraud. He owes those women $146 million. One of the first things that President-elect Donald Trump says that he's going to do in office is abolish the Federal Department of Education. our Evan Krugel shows us how likely that is to actually happen and what it could mean for Colorado schools.
Going to end education coming out of Washington, D.C. We're going to close it up, all those buildings all over the place, and you have people that in many cases hate our children. We're going to send it all back to the states.
That was President-elect Donald Trump last year, announcing his plans to shut down the federal Department of Education and shift control to states.
We want them to run the education of our children because they'll do a much better job of it. You can't do worse.
There will be chaos in the process, almost certainly. And so the question is there a good reason to do that?
Kevin Wellner is a professor at CU Boulder and the director of the National Education Policy Center, where they estimate 10% of Colorado school funding comes from the Department of Education.
Everybody will feel this impact.
Kevin Vick runs the Colorado Education Association, the state's teachers union, and says they're concerned about impacts to low-income students and students in special education programs, which are funded by the DOE.
You know, we're near the bottom of per pupil funding in the nation as a state as it is. And so likely any further strain on our funding system here in Colorado will have significant effects.
Wellner says it's unlikely the money would simply vanish. Instead, it would be passed on to states who would control how it's spent, something conservative policy groups like the Cato Institute have supported, saying the federal government should drop the reins and let people at the state level decide where and how to exercise education authority.
One thing I think would be correct to anticipate is that we're going to see more and more of a red-blue divide across the country.
Trump's plan does face some hurdles. Republicans took back control of the Senate, but they don't have the 60 votes needed to pass this unless Republicans abolish the filibuster. If that does not happen, the president-elect would need some support from Democrats. Kyle's support he's probably unlikely to get on this education topic.
Ultimately, all this trickles down to local school districts. Right. Did you hear from any of them today?
Reached out to a bunch of local school districts across the region. All of them pretty much said the same thing. At this point, it would be pure speculation to comment on this, but it's certainly something that's on their mind, something they could be gearing up for.
No doubt. Evan Krugel, thank you very much. Colorado is hot and thirsty in a bad way. Researchers say rising temperatures will bring more frequent drought, and our average rain won't make up for it.
I'll never forget getting that board and just being completely obsessed with it.
A community effort to give a whole bunch of kids that first skateboard feeling. Next. Last week's snowstorm, incredibly disruptive for the Eastern Plains, but helpful in knocking down the state's drought conditions. Last week, the USDA said 34% of the state's land was under drought. This week, it's down to 10%. The measure of severe drought across the state dropped from 9% to 4%. But researchers are also warning that our average precipitation might not be enough to pull us out of droughts in the future. According to new work from scientists at UCLA and NOAA here in Colorado, global warming is causing drought conditions in the West even in years they get normal snow and rain. Their research published this week in Science Advances focused on the conditions driving Western drought between 2000 and 2022. The researchers found that as the atmosphere gets warmer, it also gets thirstier, sucks up more water from the landscape, and holds onto it for longer periods before returning it to Earth through precipitation. In the past 20 years, they say that evaporation was the biggest driver of drought in the West, rather than just a lack of snow and rain. So as temperatures continue to increase, researchers predict droughts will get more extreme, more widespread, even when precipitation is normal.
So around 2050, what used to be a 1 in 1,000 year event becomes a 1 in 60 year event. And by the time we get out to 2100, the climate models show that to be a 1 in 6 year event. Or in other words, almost every time you have a drought, it will look a lot like that 2020 to 2022 drought that we experienced across the western United States.
Let's bring in meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen. Corey, I think sometimes climate change stuff is tough for me to understand. That seems very practical, very understandable, very scary, right? That even if we get what we're used to in rain and snow, a warmer world means that we get less water out of it.
Exactly, and we're already seeing a lot of evidence of that across our state. And one perspective on that is just the length of time in a day where the maximum temperature is reached. It's reached 95 degrees in Denver for an hour is not a big deal, but now it's staying 95 degrees for 6, 7, 8 hours consecutively, and that's where we run into the issues with the evaporation rates, and we've seen that change so drastically over the last 10 years here in our state. Tomorrow, however, it's going to be a little bit warmer than average, but you could call this a seasonal day across the state of Colorado here with temperatures in the 50s, lots of sunshine. Here in Denver, we'll start out with a little bit of cloud cover here in the morning hours, opening up to clear skies in the afternoon and some warm sunshine, 60 in some spots, but out there towards the east part of the city where the snowpack is still sitting there from that big storm, we're expecting cooler temperatures there. But we are watching our next weather maker coming in here. This is the way it'll look here in the atmosphere on Saturday as it starts to, this trough of low pressure kind of elongated and split a little bit, so take some of the energy out of it, but we'll start to feel the impacts here in the state of Colorado on Saturday with some windy conditions, some light snow across the higher terrain. But here in Denver, we probably won't notice this system too much until probably Monday night into Tuesday, where we could get a light dusting of 1 to 4 inches here in the Denver metro area, so it doesn't look like as big as a storm as that last one, and we have a very nice weekend ahead.
Folks in Lafayette are building the next generation of skateboarders. No experience necessary. First step, hand a kid the board. That's next. Elementary school students in Lafayette today got a crash course in skateboarding, crashing presumably part of the intermediary course. Kids were surprised with the new boards donated by community members and the nonprofit Cand-Aid, and then that crashing commenced.
Hey, 5th grade, I'll say this. If we're gonna stand on a piece of wood with wheels, we're kind of all a little bit goofy.
Today we're here at Pioneer Elementary in Lafayette, and we donated 140 skateboards to the entire 4th and 5th grade classes.
We're lifting each other up and supporting each other because this is really more of an art and an exploration.
I think it's important to try and help get kids off of their phones and off of screens and spend more time outside being active, and skateboarding is a very accessible activity.
I love that it's a piece of wood with wheels that really is out of control, and I learned to control this. So I tell the kids all the time, like, the strategies that you learn on this are gonna help with other things in your life that feel out of control. Yes, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to pay for that.
I got my first skateboard on my 13th birthday. That was 24 years ago. I actually still have that board.
What? Pick out the board that sings to you, that looks coolest.
I think this is a very fun experience for everybody here.
The look on their faces just takes me right back to when I got my first skateboard, and just knowing how exciting it can be to be getting that and receiving that.
And it can be so much fun and so rewarding, more than just, landing a trick.
The kids love it. The kids love it. Marilyn, do you know how to skateboard?
No.
No, I don't know how to know either. I'm too old to learn. Back with your feedback next. Text, really love watching Kyle lose it over Trump's cabinet picks. Gives us a good laugh every day. Whereas Jeff writes in, thank you for your integrity and honest, unbiased approach. Another text, I loathe your opinion. I appreciate your philanthropy. I have to know where you got tonight's blazer. Well, thank you for that text. I love your opinion and I love your philanthropy. Thanks for chipping in. And this guy, this is a really old one. It's years old. I think I got it at Macy's. Am I allowed to say that?